Chevys in a row. Michael McDowell, Jimmy Johnson, Brendan Gaughan, and Casey Kane, the top 5 in practice number 2 earlier today. That is in the Cup Series. And, of course, earlier today in the practice for the Xfinity race, Jeb Burton was the fastest earlier today, followed by Cole Custer, Spencer Gallagher, Casey Mears, and Ty Dillon rounding out the top 5.
And we might mention this, too. Cole had to go to a backup car. He was involved in a very early incident in the first practice for the Xfinity guys in that 00, the red and white car out of Stuart Haas Racing. That is the only Xfinity car they're fielding. You know, their 4 major cars are in the Cup Series, but over in the Xfinity Series, this is new for them. The first time ever they put an Xfinity car on the racetrack.
Well, we're going to wrap it up here. The Fox News is coming up at the top of the hour, and then we'll continue talking racing. Tomorrow, we start at high noon, live from the World Center of Racing. See you at noon tomorrow here on Race Talk on 1150 WNDB.
The revised Trump travel ban now in effect, but one state files a legal challenge. This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Jane Metzler. The ban affects travelers from 6 mostly Muslim countries, but does allow people with close family or business ties to enter the U.S. Hawaii taking issue with the Trump administration's definition of just who is considered close family. Fiancés and grandparents, among others, are not. Fox's Jessica Rosenthal is live at LAX.
And Jane, some Muslim travelers here at LAX say they are upset by the ban. Sakiba arrived here from Pakistan and says it feels kind of unfair.
Some people came there for the jobs, right? They didn't have a plan to destroy or misuse the United States or harm the United States.
And Public Counsel Attorney Talia Inlander's on standby here for any legal issues that pop up. She says people with valid visas issued before today's date shouldn't be impacted, but
we really are concerned.
So she says their focus now is actually on how Customs and Border Protection implements the new rules moving forward, Jane.
Thanks, Jessica. 2 immigration bills passing the House today. One increases penalties for people who re-enter the U.S. illegally. The other strips federal funding from so-called sanctuary cities. Democrats say the bills are intended to make lawmakers look tough, but will not have much of an impact. Another controversial morning tweet.
President Trump tweeting, quote, "I heard poorly rated Morning Joe speaks badly of me. Don't watch anymore." Then how come low IQ Crazy Mika, along with Psycho Joe, came to Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row around New Year's Eve and insisted on joining me? She was bleeding badly from a facelift. I said no.
Fox's John Roberts, a new Fox News poll finds only 13% approve of the president's tweetings. Fox News, fair and balanced.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
The opinions expressed on this show are those of the participants, the hosts, the guests, and the callers, and do not necessarily reflect the opinions and views of Southern Stone Communications, WNDB Radio, its employees, and friends. Comments regarding WNDB's programming can be addressed to D. Lang at DaytonaRadio.com.
Live from Daytona Beach, Florida, bringing a voice to America's forgotten working class, speaking the truth for the America that Washington left behind, making America great again, 1 hour at a time. This is Trump Talk Live, where we the people have the right voice. Presented by the Republican Party of Volusia County. Here now are your hosts for this episode, Vic Baker and Joe Fieldus.
Happy birthday, America. Greetings, fellow American patriot Trumpublicans, and welcome to the Twitter frenzy edition of Trump Talk Live. We welcome listeners from NASCAR Nation tonight as we follow special coverage of the races. Well, our president this week has signed his 40th law, the VA Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act. He's won a victory in the U.S. Supreme Court over his immigration order. He's made a compelling case for case law to crack down on criminal illegal aliens, which the House passed tonight, and a bill to yank federal funding from sanctuary cities who jeopardize safety by defying federal immigration law. And he's pushing the Senate to finally pass a common-sense market-driven replacement for Obamacare that will deliver care along with coverage at affordable rates. He's warned Assad away from pulling another chemical strike against innocent civilians in Syria. He's sanctioned a Chinese bank and individuals who do business with a rogue plumpocrat James Bond villain Kim Jong-un in North Korea. But the only thing the rabid White House press corps wants to talk about is the president's mean tweet about Mika's facelift? Are you kidding me? It's the latest shiny object to distract the corrupt media mob away from anything as important as health care, homeland security, or national defense. Let me get this right, mediacrats. Mika's saving face is more important than real issues affecting real Americans? You spend almost all of your airtime in print space tearing down this president and howl in protest when he turns off the White House press room cameras and says one mean thing? Now, you're saying this one tweet will derail the president's entire agenda. What are you people smoking out there? Rush Limbaugh says you're like cats chasing a laser beam. The president knows he can drive you to distraction with one tweet. While you chase that, he's getting his job done, making America great again. So, get over yourselves, CNN, New York Times. They claim Trump doesn't empower women. Tell that to Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's pinning their ears back without breaking a sweat. The rest of you whiny, liberal, hypocritical hucksters, we don't believe you. We don't trust you. And fake news prima donna Jim Acosta. Don't look for my shoulder to cry on. We've seen more than enough of you to last through several presidential terms. Get used to the Trump White House, fake news mongers. You're going to have to learn that if you dish it out, you're going to get it back in spades from this president for the next 7.5 years. I'm your Trump-Publican host, Vic Baker, hosting this week with the Volusia County Chairman of the Trump-Pence 2016 campaign, Joel Fieldis.
Good evening, Vic, and happy July 4th weekend to our NASCAR friends. You're going to like the show tonight? I've got some good news. President Trump is winning so much, the Democrats are seriously thinking of firing Nancy Pelosi. Now, that probably won't happen because Nancy's a fundraising machine among the lefties, but the fact it's being openly talked about tells us the depth of Democrat despair. Their house of cards has collapsed. The tipping point for them happened 9 days ago in Georgia Congressional District 6, where in a special election, $30 million liberal dollars could not convince Atlanta area voters to pick a Democrat. And to make their defeat worse, these voters were supposed to be what Democrats claim is their kind of people. Urban, upper income bracket, educated, younger. It didn't matter. It was another lost election for the donkeys, and the effect on them has been profound. Maureen Dowd of the New York Times, not our friend, said this, quote, "You know who is really sick and tired of Donald Trump winning to the point where they beg, please, Mr. President, sir, it's too much? It's Democrats. Democrats just got skunked 4-0 in races they excitedly thought they could win because everyone they hang with hates Trump. The party still seems flummoxed that there were big swaths of the country where Democrats once roamed that now regard the Democrat brand as garbage. If Trump is the Antichrist, as they believe, then Georgia was going to be a cakewalk, but it turned into another soul-sucking disappointment," end quote. Poor Miss Dowd. But her misery has company. Democrat Congressman Tim Ryan of Ohio said this, quote, "It's Trump 4, us 0. And when that comes out of my mouth, it bothers me. But Trump does robocalls. He tweets. He talks about the races. He motivates his base. And he moves the needle. We are still doing something wrong here because A, he's the president, and B, we're still losing to his candidates," end quote. And then the Washington Post, not our friend, wrote this, quote, "The Georgia district had the highest percentage of college graduates of any in the nation. Mr. Ossoff tried to win over those suburban voters with a message on economic issues. But it wasn't enough in an election which the GOP made Pelosi-style Democrats a focus. Trump has tapped into sentiments about Washington that Democrats ignore at their peril. Nor can Democrats ignore voters' concerns about immigration. Democrats are in the minority in the House, the Senate, governorships, and state legislatures. If continued frustration with losing doesn't prompt rethinking about the message, what will? End quote. Poor Washington Post. These people are lost in the political wilderness. Can you hear their growing panic? Folks, in 9 days, we will hit the 9-month anniversary of the election that changed everything. We, the people, sent Donald Trump into a fight for the soul of America, and that war is ongoing as we speak. So mark your calendars. In 495 days, we'll get to the vote again in the midterm elections. There are more Democrats to defeat, and those never-Trump Republicans in Congress must be given the boot. Stay engaged, stay motivated, and keep standing alongside our president. Vic, let's roll.
Okay, so all this is going on with Donald Trump, and he sends out a tweet that sends the media into an absolute hissy fit. The tweet was about Mika Brzezinski. It wasn't a very kind tweet. It was about her bleeding from her facelift when she came to Mar-a-Lago as a guest. She and Joe Scarborough, had pleaded with him to let them be a guest at Mar-a-Lago after the election. So they went, and Trump said some things that were, not very graceful, but there was such a firestorm. The media didn't want to talk about anything important. They didn't want to talk about Kate's Law, health care, tax reform, the North Koreans, the Syrian chemical weapons. They didn't want to talk about it. What they want to talk about was just about this tweet. Is this going to derail your agenda and everything else? So Sarah Huckabee Sanders has been taking them to the woodshed on a regular basis, and she pinned their ears back today. Let's hear the first segment.
The president has been attacked mercilessly on personal accounts by members on that program. And I think he's been very clear that when he gets attacked, he's going to hit back. I think the American people elected somebody who's tough, who's smart, and who's a fighter. And that's Donald Trump. And I don't think that it's a surprise to anybody that he fights fire with fire. The things that this show has called him, and not just him, but numerous members of his staff, including myself and many others, are very deeply personal. So to then turn and pretend like, this approach is, I guess it's kind of like we're living in the twilight zone. They do this day after day after day, and then the president responds and defends himself, and everybody is appalled and blown away.
So that's Sarah, but she wasn't done with them. She had a little bit more to say, and they kept coming at her, and she said, "We've just answered your question, but let's listen to a little bit more."
The president in no way, form, or fashion has ever promoted or encouraged violence. If anything, quite the contrary. And he was simply pushing back and defending himself.
Yeah, she was asked by the reporter, well, don't you think these kind of comments encourage violence against journalists? I don't get where they get that from. But in any case, she came back and finally really fired out. She did some statistics about what their coverage is devoted to as opposed to the real issues that affect Americans. Let's hear that.
You look at the coverage over the last month of the extended period between May and June, all of the major networks, if you look at their coverage and what they're talking about, they spent 1 minute in the evening newscast talking about tax reform, 3 minutes on infrastructure, 5 minutes on the economy and jobs, 17 minutes on healthcare, and 353 minutes attacking the president and pushing a false narrative on Russia. I mean, look at that in comparison. If you guys want to talk about legislative agenda and focus on policy and priorities, you guys get to help set that table. And 353 minutes of attacks against the president and driving a false narrative, and 1 minute on tax reform. That's over the course of a month.
There's a new sheriff in town, Joe, in the White House press briefing room.
She's very good. I really like her a lot.
And I would say that, while they're all obsessing over this, there's more important stuff going on Capitol Hill. Most importantly this week, Joe, we had a case of Mitch McConnell having to pull the Senate bill. Now, there's some wisdom to this because the CBO score, this gives him metrics whereby he can find ways to refine the bill and make it easier to pass. And I'm hearing now that Ted Cruz is working with Mitch to find a compromise conservatives can get on board with. I'm going to predict that not next week, but the week after next when they come back. By the way, folks, we'll talk about that in a minute, about the short legislative season. But Mitch had some things to say when he pulled the bill initially. Let's look at Senate number 1.
We're going to continue the discussions within our conference on the differences that we have, that we're continuing to try to litigate. Consequently, we will not be on the bill this week, but we're still working toward getting at least 50 people in a comfortable place.
So that's Mitch McConnell, and of course there were some holdouts. There were 6, then 9. I've got 6 of them that were the first ones in. That was Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Susan Collins, Dean Heller, Ron Johnson, and one other one, Mike Lee from Utah. Those 6. They can all be brought aboard, I think. Now what's going to happen is they're going to just have to balance this thing out. But there's a short time frame to get it done. Now, Trump talked about this. President Trump Health, he brought them over to the White House to call them together for a little summit. 50 of the senators from the Republican side showed up for that summit. Here's what President Trump said.
Well, I thought I'd ask you folks to come say hello and we'll discuss health care. We have really no choice but to solve this situation. Obamacare is a total disaster. It's melting down as we speak. Rates are going up. In fact, it's very interesting, Lisa, that you're sitting next to me, because in Alaska it was 206%, a 206% increase in Alaska.
206% increase in Alaska. He had on his side Lisa Murkowski on one side and Susan Collins on the other side, who said she was going to be a no vote. Also Dean Heller. He's putting the heat on, but he's also putting on the charm offensive. Don't count him out. Also, he implored them. He says, we don't have much of a choice, and we're not going to want Chuck Schumer writing the bill, and that could happen if you guys fail to keep your promise. Next cut.
We're getting very close, but for the country, we have to have health care. And it can't be Obamacare, which is melting down. The other side is saying all sorts of things before they even knew what the bill was. This will be great if we get it done, and if we don't get it done, it's just going to be something that we're not going to like. But I think we have a chance to do something very, very important for the public, very, very important for the people of our country that we love.
Now, taxpayer advocate Grover Norquist has explained some things that the Democrats are misreading about this bill. They're saying Medicaid cuts, first of all. It's not a cut in Medicaid. It's a cut in the rate of growth in Medicaid. If they don't do something about it, the whole thing's going to go bankrupt anyway. The other thing they talk about is 22 million people that will be losing their health care, not taking into account why they're going to lose their health care, which Grover Norquist gave us a good explanation of that. Let's listen to cut number 1.
The Senate bill and the House bill both get rid of all of the tax increases in Obamacare. The Senate does it in a phased-in period as opposed to all at once. And it takes a slightly different approach on allowing states to opt out of certain mandates, which will save taxpayers and consumers of health care a great deal of money.
A great deal of money. And then, of course, the CBO score about the 22 million, Grover.
Those numbers about how many people will lose their health care, since they count people who are forced to buy health care with penalties, and they're no longer forced to. That's like referring to people being kicked out of East Germany when the wall came down. People asking to leave Obamacare are not denied health care. They are not required to buy the straitjacket that Obamacare was. Add to that, the CBO was off by a factor of 2 on how many people were going to go into Obamacare.
Right. Okay, so Grover straightens us out on that. Here's another bit of number for you. The Senate and House will be out of business all next week, returning the following Monday, after a week from this Monday, after the July 4th. That leaves them 13 legislative days before they go for their August recess, which is 38 days.
They got to cancel the August recess. Got to.
Cancel the August recess. Folks, tweet everybody you know an address for, Twitter address, any way you get to Congress people, the leadership, you got to flood them with demands that we do your job, cancel the August recess. They can't get this agenda passed. They don't have the time. They only work. They take 218 days a year off. Now, would you like to have a job like that pays $174,000 a year? I would. Let's take a break, and we'll be back with more in a moment.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033. We'll return in a moment to bring you more Trump Talk Live, shedding the light of truth from that shining city on a hill.
Feeling stuck in a state of compensation stagnation? You know, another year with no raise. Then let State Farm agent Sonia Mori in DeLand help you get to a better state with a discount double check that can stretch your hard-earned dollars a little farther. Sonia will go through your car insurance to make sure you're getting all the discounts you deserve. Discounts that could add up to 40% and put a few $100 extra in your pocket. Sound good? Then get your budget to a better state by calling State Farm agent Sonia Mori in DeLand today. Discounts may vary state to state.
At Fields, we're known for our complimentary loaners, and now we're offering loaners you can take home and keep.
It's Fields' first ever loaner sales event. Save thousands on all service loaners at Fields Volvo Cars of Daytona Beach.
And when you become part of the Fields family, you get, of course, complimentary loaners, car washes, and our gourmet cafes, plus much, much more.
Plus, save big on a great selection of low-mileage demos. Fields Volvo Cars of Daytona Beach. See Fields first at fieldsvolvocarsofdaytonabeach.com.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033.
Welcome back to Trump Talk Live. The travel ban, as they call it, the travel ban, took effect. The Supreme Court of the United States said these appellate courts were completely off base. The president has the ultimate authority. The only carve-out they did was they couldn't exclude people who had actual family ties. But in effect, it took effect at 8 o'clock, just when this show started. And there's already litigation on it, as you would expect. The 9 justices, contrary to what the media would tell you, all 9 justices agree that the appellate courts were wrong on this. And I got to tell you, that's what it was. And by the way, Justice Kennedy did not retire, so he's still on the court for another term. And the travel ban's going to take effect. Supreme Court is going to hear it in the fall. By then, it'll be moot. So the travel ban is back. Also, the Supreme Court ruled in a religious case that the blocking of funding from a school that was a religious-based school from the state, I believe it was Missouri, had a law that excluded them from funding. That was a constitutional breach because they said the school cannot be excluded from federal or state funding simply because they have religion if there's a general benefit to the funding.
Yeah, some of the liberals tried to pretend that this ruling only applies to this issue about paving a parking lot, but it's not. It's going to cover a lot of other ground. It's a great ruling.
Absolutely a great ruling. So we have Paul Ryan and Secretary Kelly talked about Kate's Law, which was also passed by the House. Only one Republican voted no, and a couple of dozen Democrats voted yes on Kate's Law. And we're going to have Paul Ryan explain what we're talking about. Kate's Law? Yeah, Kate's Law.
As you know, this is named after Kate Steinle, who was murdered 2 years ago in San Francisco by an illegal immigrant who had been deported several times. He should not have been here, and she should not have died. So this initiative will toughen penalties for illegal immigrants who repeatedly re-enter the country.
Are we there? Okay. And he followed up explaining the other law that they passed tonight, and actually it's a bill, it's got to pass in the Senate too, yanking funding from sanctuary cities.
The second measure gives the government the authority to withhold grants from cities that fail to cooperate with federal law enforcement. By flagrantly disregarding the rule of law, sanctuary cities are putting lives at risk, and we cannot tolerate that. Every day, Secretary Kelly leads professionals around the country and around the world, quite frankly, who are charged with keeping our homeland safe. They make incredible sacrifices. Our job here is to make sure that those professionals have the tools that they need and the resources that they need to carry out their work and to protect our communities.
Now, Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly explained why it's so important to have this federal law applied.
The word sanctuary calls to mind someplace safe, but too often for families and victims affected by illegal immigrant crime, sanctuary cities are anything but safe. Instead, these cities are places that allow some criminals go free, undermine federal law enforcement, and make our communities less safe. When a sanctuary jurisdiction fails to honor an ICE detainer and instead releases a criminal back to the streets, it doesn't mean ICE stops looking for the bad guy. Instead, it means that ICE has to take its targeted operations out of the safe, secure, and private confines of a jail and go into neighborhoods, businesses, and other public places.
Okay, so that's John Kelly on that topic. Now we're talking about the fake news network. The fake news network, FNN, or CNN is what we call it. The heaping pile of lies has finally come home to roost. They have fired 3 of their top so-called journalists after they were threatened with a $100 million defamation lawsuit by a Trump associate, Anthony Scaramucci, where they falsely reported, because he just happened to encounter somebody who was a Russian at a dinner in Davos. They said, well, that he was colluding with the Russians on some kind of a deal. It was completely false. It was defamatory. They had to completely pull the story. And not only that, but they've been told no more Russia stories except the clearance at the very high levels of CNN.
CNN is melting down
CNN
before
is
our
melting
eyes.
down. You know, first they have the Kathy Griffin Association, then they got the guy that said Trump is a piece of fecal matter, and you know, and all these people at CNN are. The other thing that's going on in the background here for CNN, people should be aware of the fact that AT&T is about to take over ownership in an $83 billion deal to buy Time Warner, which is the parent company of CNN. Well,
it can only improve it. It can't get any worse.
Time Warner's an anti-Trump company, but AT&T has a lot of top executives that are very friendly with Donald Trump. And Jeff Zucker, who has also been exposed by Project Veritas and James O'Keefe in some undercover videos, his job is going to be on the line. Now, he'll get out of there with a lot of golden parachute money. You can be sure of that. But there is so much on CNN's deck right now. Their credibility is completely tattered. The ratings, they are in the toilet on the ratings. There is nothing left for them. They're absolutely gone.
Well, CNN's finding out what a lot of people found out all during the campaign and lately, that when you punch Donald Trump, which they do daily, you're going to get counterpunched. And CNN is feeling the effect of this. They are. I think Rush has kind of wondered the other day whether CNN can even survive.
That's right. Sarah Huckabee Sanders again had some things to say the other day about that. Reporter challenged Sarah. Does the president feel that he's done some things wrong? Well, cut 3. Let's listen to Sarah.
Does the president actually expect?
I'm sorry?
President actually expect us not to report on stories of a foreign country trying to influence the presidential election?
I don't think it's that it's expected that you're not to report on, again, actual news if there's something there. But again, I think that there are a lot of things happening in this world that, frankly, a lot of people would like to hear about, whether it's job growth, whether it's deregulation, whether it's tax reform, health care. I think a lot of those things deserve a lot more coverage than they get. And all we're saying is, I think that we should take a really good look at what we are focused on, what we are covering, and making sure that it's actually accurate and it's honest.
Another reporter decided to give Sarah a tongue lashing, but he got a little bit as good as he gave in cut number 4.
If we make the slightest mistake, the slightest word is off, it is just an absolute tirade from a lot of people in this room. But news outlets get to go on day after day and cite unnamed sources, use stories without sources, have, you mentioned the Scaramucci story where they had to have reporters resign.
Come on, you're inflaming everybody right here and right now with those words. This administration has done that as well. Why in the name of heavens? Any one of us, right, are replaceable, and any one of us, if we don't get it right, the audience has the opportunity to turn the channel or not read us. You have been elected to serve for 4 years at least. There's no option other than that. We're here to ask you questions. We're here to provide the answers. And what you just did is inflammatory to people all over the country who look at it and say, see, once again, the president is right and everybody else out here is fake media. And everybody in this room is only trying to do their job.
Well, I disagree completely. First of all, I think if anything has been inflamed, it's the dishonesty that often takes place by the news media. And I think it is outrageous for you to accuse me of inflaming a story when I was simply trying to respond to his question.
Go get him, Sarah. Go get him. Oh, a couple of developments on that front. Fake news. The New York Times quietly issues major correction. It was only 4, not 17 intel agencies that said that the Russia hacking assessment was correct. So for how many months were we told that every intelligence community says it was the Russians? Now it's only 4 of 17. That's something. Okay. Why? In the other issue, Sarah Palin is suing the New York Times over an editorial to try to tie her to the Gifford shooting. Nothing to do with it. So the New York Times is going to be faced with a lawsuit of its own. And as for CNN, we know this is why CNN can't have nice things, because they break the truth.
Vic, millions of Americans have come to understand that network news shows and cable news and newspaper articles syndicated every day, Associated Press is another one, they're using what seems to be an identical propaganda script, much in the same way that was done in the old Soviet Union and with Pravda and some other media organs that ran that show. Of course, the hapless Russian people of that time had no internet to help them, but we do. And we also have freelance reporters like James O'Keefe and his Project Veritas initiative, which just this week practically brought down CNN with their video. Look, in other countries, what they're doing, our media, would rightly be called an attempted coup. And here we laughingly call it a free press. It's laughable because our state media is totally bought and paid for. So go to our website, VolusiaCountyRepublicans.org. Vic has put together an ever-growing list of news sites that are actually doing the work of a free press.
Okay, folks, we'll be back with more Trump Talk Live, and we welcome your calls. We'll be back in just a moment.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033. We're not done yet. More Trump Talk Live is just ahead. In God we trust. In America we believe.
Let's face it, you've got too much stuff. So much stuff that it won't all fit in your house. So what do you do with all your extra stuff? You could rent a place to store it, but then you're just throwing away money and it's not convenient. You know what is convenient? A Weather King portable building from Sheds of Daytona. Buy or rent to own with no credit check. Sheds of Daytona, your authorized Weather King dealer, has a Weather King shed that's perfect for you. Whether you need a portable garage, barn style, a deluxe lofted barn cabin, a cottage shed, or a utility shed. And your new shed will be watertight and tied down to help prevent it from blowing away when the Florida weather turns severe. All Weather King sheds are made in the USA. Free delivery and setup with many models on site, or custom design your own shed and see their selection of carports at shedsofdaytona.com. Be sure to ask about the free metal roof upgrade too. Call Sheds of Daytona at 607-765-9082. That's 607-765-9082. Pay him a visit Friday through Sunday at the Daytona Flea and Farmers Market at the north corner of Rose P and H.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033.
All right, welcome back. We want to take just a second and say thank you to our sponsors, Sonia Mori of DeLand, to make her State Farm agent. Ask Sonia for an insurance checkup. Also, Milne Roofing. Don't let the raindrops keep falling on your head. Call Milne Roofing. And for the best pizza in DeLand, Marino's Pizza. Thank you so much. If anyone would like to be a sponsor of Trump Talk Live, please contact Tony Ledbetter.
Okay, another tweet from President Trump, basically saying so much is the fact that the news has come out that, remember when Obama was telling that there was no evidence of Russian collusion or Russian or interference with our election? That was back last August. But then after the election, all of a sudden he discovered that there was. Well, he knew back last August, and he didn't say anything. You know why? Because he thought Hillary was going to win. Well, President Trump has basically said, well, Obama colluded or obstructed during the election. Obama's guilty of colluding with the Russians and obstructing the election. So now the tables have turned a little bit on Obama, and they don't like it. Obama didn't like that at all.
The former president, by the way, who's in Indonesia on another one of his
luxury vacations. Man of the poor.
Let me give you something. I got something here that was sent to me today by our friend Uncle Jack Blum, a true Trumpublican. And this is just a rundown. Since he left office, former President Obama has vacationed at Marlon Brando's private island, which you got to Google that to believe it. He's also stayed at a private Palm Springs estate where you stay at the Four Seasons Resort in Bali, which is rooms go for $2,000 a night. He visited a very private Mid-Pacific Country Club in is that Oahu? What is that? Hawaii? In
Oahu.
Yeah, Oahu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Championship private golf course, folks. He vacationed with Richard Branson, exclusive, very private Necker Island in the British Virgin Islands. He sailed for a while on Mughal David Geffen's private yacht. He visited Borgo Fino Chiato in Tuscany, Italy. Now, that's a restored medieval hamlet with 5 villas, 22 bedrooms, and you can only rent this place in its entirety for a minimum of 3 days. He goes by private jet to that place, escorted by 6 fighter jets from the Italian Air Force.
So much for global warming.
So much for the carbon footprint, eh? So this, so himself has been in the interim, got a $400,000 speaking fee from a Wall Street bank. Something that even Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren decided was, quote, troubling. Look, no other president has flaunted such an obscenely lavish lifestyle after leaving office. And remember this, we still pay him a salary, and we pay for his Secret Service detail.
Still gets $400,000 plus a Secret Service detail and all kinds of other amenities. Let's talk about the acting director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe. Apparently, according to Circa, our friends John Solomon and Sarah Carta, this central player in the Russia election case, Andrew McCabe, who's the acting FBI director, is the focus of 3 separate federal administrative inquiries into allegations about his behavior as a senior bureau executive. According to documents and interviews, the allegations range from sexual discrimination to improper political activity. And the political activity, the Hatch Act, his wife ran for state senate in their state, I believe Virginia, right?
I got some numbers on that. His wife, Jill McCabe, ran for state senate in Northern Virginia as a Democrat. Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, thank you, who is close to Bill and Hillary, as we all know, gave the McCabe campaign $467,000 from his own political action committee. In total, consider all Virginia Democratic Party, et cetera, it came to just under $900,000 went to her campaign. The campaign failed. A spokesman for the governor told the Wall Street Journal, after they asked why was a grand total of $1.6 million spent on this candidate, a spokesman said any insinuation that the governor's support was tied to anything other than his desire to elect candidates who would help pass his agenda is just ridiculous. Really?
Well, at the same time, the FBI, there's some speculation that he may be retaliating against Michael Flynn with going after him because Michael Flynn stood up for a supervisory special agent, Robert Gritz, who was complaining about that sexual discrimination, and that Flynn stood up for her, and that McCabe has a vendetta against him. That is an interesting little piece of tidbit that's
There'll be more on that one.
Of course, there's a lot more out there. Possible conflict of interest from Mueller. He's hired a whole bank of Democrats, including some that worked for the Clinton Foundation for the special prosecution, and we just don't know where that's going to go yet. But let's run through some Newt bites, and I'll be back for a moment. And you take this and just go talk through Newt talking about these things.
Okay, let's listen to Newt. He's always good. Cut 1.
And there are 2 parts to it. One is how much of it's bad, and the other is how bad they are at being bad. I mean, you'd think if they're going to do this kind of stuff, they'd be subtle, they'd be clever. I mean, this is stupid. I mean, here's the FBI director being stupid. It's not complicated. Here's Hillary Clinton being stupid. I mean, talk about a stupid party. I know the donkey was the original symbol of the Democratic Party, but this is really down at a point of embarrassment. And I will say, on behalf of Adam Schiff and on behalf of Senator Feinstein, I'm very proud as Democrats, because I know it was a risk, that both of them came out and said, we have to investigate Loretta Lynch and find out what she's doing.
Okay, Newt, what should Trump do or think now?
I would be thinking, all right, you guys, you had 6 months of coming at me. You couldn't do it. You couldn't prove anything. And now you're about to just wreck yourself on all this stuff. And in addition to being pretty happy with the Supreme Court, he ought to be pretty happy with the way these things are turning around in a way that is astonishing.
Well, Mr. Mueller has serious conflicts. He's hired big Democratic donors and even a Hillary attorney. Cut three.
I think that the House and Senate Judiciary Committees should bring Mueller in, not to get into the details of the investigation, but to get into the details of who he's hiring, why he's hiring them. Has he considered a single pro-Trump lawyer? I mean, this is one of the most...
Not one.
Again,
that I've
it's
seen.
part of the same pattern. These guys, there is no way you can look at the people Mueller has hired, look at where they came from, and apparently the day Rosenstein said, oh, well, maybe they gave some money to the Democrats, but that doesn't mean they're biased. Give me a break.
Okay, that's Newt Gingrich talking, and now, of course, we're talking about Loretta Lynch. Loretta Lynch is under investigation. The Congress wants to ask her some questions about why she wanted to call the Clinton investigation a matter and not an investigation, Joe.
Yeah, you notice the worm turning on all this stuff. I think the Democrats may be very surprised where this is all going to go.
Absolutely, and we've got the Sanders now, the man of the people, the socialist, Bernie Sanders. His wife had some flim-flam finances going on with a college in Burlington, Vermont, which has gone out of business after her departure. But she was hitting people up for money and using Sanders' name for that. And what has happened to her?
Well, Bernie and Jane Sanders have lawyered up. They've hired prominent defense attorneys amid a FBI investigation on a... $200,000 in a severance package. Now, this is a school that was founded in 1972, and it was humming along until this brilliant socialist came up with an elaborate bank scheme. They ran it into the ground, walked away with cash in hand. Vic, who knew that socialism could be so profitable?
Absolutely. Speaking of socialists, the Soviet, or not the Soviet, but the Russian ambassador is saying goodbye to Washington after meeting everybody in Washington and shaking hands with them. Not just Sessions. He met with everybody in the Senate. Kislyak has been recalled by the Kremlin because he's done his job. He's now the most famous man in Washington. And so there's nothing more for him to do.
A lot of Americans know his name. They don't know their own congressman, but they know him.
That's right. Another thing that's happened today is that Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, announced that we're imposing sanctions, financial sanctions against a bank in China and a couple of Chinese nationals who have been playing footsie with Kim Jong-un by laundering money for him. We're going to shut off the money spigot for this madman in North Korea. And that's also going on. And here's something else that's going on. Nikki Haley. President Trump served notice to Assad through Nikki Haley that you better not think about dropping more chemical bombs on your people, because if you do, we're going to rain hellfire down on you. And here's what Nikki Haley had to say about this earlier this week.
They have seen activities that are similar to preparations of a chemical weapons attack, much like what we saw on April 4th. And I believe that the goal is at this point not just to send Assad a message, but to send Russia and Iran a message that if this happens again, we are putting you on notice. And my hope is that the president's warning will certainly get Russia and Iran to take a second look, and I hope that it will caution aside from the fact that we don't want to see innocent men, women, and children hurt again.
That was Nikki Haley, and of course the word today is that Assad got the message, and there is going to be no chemical warfare over in Syria now because we basically laid down the marker on those.
Isn't Nikki Haley, it is to me anyway, a surprise. She seems like she was born for this job. She's doing outstanding.
She is, absolutely, and to the point where there is absolutely no doubt in the fact that she knows exactly what to say and how to set the tone. And she is not going to be tripped up and or intimidated by the world community about this stuff. She's a perfect, one of the great things about Donald Trump is he knows how to pick the right people for the job.
He finds the people, doesn't he?
He finds the right people for the job. We will welcome your phone calls, and I'm going to just tell you, you can get us toll-free at 1-800-927-0033 if you want to talk to us. We've got 15 minutes left in the show after the break. We'll talk to you about any subject. We've run through a lot of material here, and we haven't really had any time to let you in the door, but we're welcoming your calls at 1-800-927-0033. Trump Talk Live will return after this brief message.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033.
The Ormond Beach Police Department's annual fundraiser Beach 5K Run, presented by Ruin Zifra, is on Saturday, July 15th. Come show your support for the Ormond Beach Police Department and run in a 5K like no other on the Fun Coast. Come out to Andy Romano Beachfront Park on A1A for a 7 a.m. registration and an 8 a.m. race start time. The race includes free runner t-shirts, age and gender medal categories, and prizes for best bad guy costume, so be sure to dress up. Don't forget the post-race party at the Beach Bucket with photo spots and the award ceremony. Come support the Ormond Beach Police Department and the Ormond PD Community Outreach Programs on Saturday, July 15th. Pre-registration is only $25 and walk-ups are welcome. For race details and to pre-register, text COPS to 40691. That's COPS to 40691. Text rates apply. Or visit runsignup.com and search Ormond PD. Sponsored by Riverside Clinical Research and WNDB.
Keep your radio or phone app or computer right where it is for more Trump Talk Live, where good old-fashioned American common sense is making a comeback.
We're back. Trump Talk Live. We welcome your phone calls toll-free at 1-800-927-0033. Something else that escaped the notice of the media. The President of the United States held an event where he actually kept another of his campaign promises, and that was, Joe, VA accountability. Remember the scandals we had, the VA disgrace during the Obama administration? Veterans were left and waiting in line for care, and they were dying on the vine waiting for care. Well, the president actually signed the VA Accountability and Whistleblower Act last Friday, and he was standing there with a wounded warrior named Sergeant Michael Verardo, who lost a leg in Afghanistan and couldn't get any care from the VA until the Trump administration came in, and they got it straightened out. But now they can fire the bad eggs that don't provide the service, and that is a remarkable improvement. And I'm going to share with you a comment made by Secretary Shulkin, who talked a little bit about it in cut number 1 VA.
In one situation, he had to wait 57 days just to get his prosthetic leg fixed. He had to wait 3.5 years to be able to get the type of adaptions for his home that he needed to be able to live comfortably in his home. I'm pleased to say he's waiting no longer. Unfortunately, Michael's story isn't unique, and that's the reason why we're so focused on fixing the VA.
Sergeant Verardo said he prepared himself to be potentially killed or wounded in action. What he wasn't prepared for was the terrible care that he got when he came home. But
under the previous administration, I waited over 3.5 years for required adaptive changes to be made so that I could safely reside in my own home. Under President Trump, with the assistance of Secretary Shulkin, these changes were made within weeks.
President Trump signed the law. It's in effect now. They can fire the bad eggs. And that is absolutely phenomenal, as President Trump
I'm
would
glad
say.
you brought all this up because the our state media barely mentioned this. Can you believe that?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, it's not, it's something. We've got a phone call, actually. We've got Brett in Daytona that we'd like to put on the air. Brett, you're on the air with Trump Talk Live. Thanks for waiting.
Good evening. Well, I just want to touch upon the Syrian situation that you mentioned earlier. It seems as though they've got the message after we downed one of their Su-22s, which is pretty much contemporary for the FA-18. But the North Korean situation seems to have calmed down also, and I think Kim Jong-il, or whatever his name is, would be wise to understand that since 1953 we have been in a ceasefire with North Korea. There was no peace treaty signed, so we can resume hostilities at any time.
You're right. A lot of people don't know that. We're still technically at war with North Korea. There was never an armistice to that war. It's a truce, and you're absolutely right about that. Obviously, the consequences would be so devastating if a nuclear missile were fired from Pyongyang's government toward the South Koreans or Japan or the U.S. continent. We don't want to see that happen. Millions, tens of millions of people could die. But putting pressure on China and its banks and its individuals may start to have an effect. We're going to have to tighten the squeeze. No more chocolate cake for you, President Xi.
That's correct. That's correct. But a nuclear missile from North Korea, as I understand it, would be counter to what he actually wants. I think, in more likelihood, the bigger fear is a artillery attack from North Korea, because they are well within artillery range of South Korea.
Well, you're right about that too.
Either one would be suicidal, and I'm not sure he's suicidal. I think he thinks he can gain things, but China may have finally got through his head that you're not going to win, so stop it.
Well, I think 59 cruise missiles into Syria and then a mother of all bombs in Afghanistan may have given them a reason to pause on some of their plans. Brett, I appreciate your call to Trump Talk Live. Please encourage your friends to listen and call in. We thank you for your call. Okay, we go now to Ray in Port Orange. Ray, you're on Trump Talk Live. Ray, is this my friend, the Wawa Donuts man?
Yes, sir. The one and only.
It's Sergeant Ray, U.S. Army retired, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Retired First Sergeant, yep.
Yes, sir.
Hey, guys, I just want to thank you for this show. I mean, I am so elated, so happy that all this is going on, and Trump is there. He's doing what he said he was going to do, and he's getting it done. He's sliding it in while everybody else is talking about him tweeting and this and that. I'm loving it. I mean, that's all I can say.
I can tell you, Ray, you can tell your friends if they're getting discouraged by what they hear on the mainstream media, the evening newscast, or if they read in the newspapers, even our local paper, which picks up the AP, which is the propaganda arm of the deep state and the Democrats. Don't believe that stuff. You've got to go online. You've got to research for yourself. Look at the Volusia County Republican Facebook page. And trust me when I tell you, Trump has a connection to the people as Reagan did in his time and as Roosevelt did in his time. And the media are getting more and more frustrated because they can't control him. They can't pick him down.
They can't touch him.
Yeah, they can't touch him, and they just don't know what to do. That's why they're having tantrums. Jim Acosta's having tantrums. I mean, my God, I want to give him a crying towel because he can't be on camera at the White House news briefings. As last time I checked, Ray, the First Amendment had nothing about televised briefings in the White House. I don't believe that the First Amendment even envisioned the White House existing. So I think they've got it wrong, right?
There's never been a pounding that given to an incoming president at first, starting on November 9th, and continuing to this day. There's never been a pounding that a president and an incoming president has received like the one that we have right now. And the thing is, they're not winning. Usually, when you pound a politician like this, he will give in, he will cave, he will be bought off, he'll do something to get out of it. Trump defies them, and he's counterpunching, and he's winning. This is who we elected. This is why we elected him.
That's right, and I think he's enjoying every minute of it.
It seems to.
I really believe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a 71-year-old man who acts like he's half his age, and He just feeds on the energy of the moment, and he's adapting, and he's learning, and he's growing into the office. Yes, some of his tweets are a little bit on the rough side, but you know something, with all the stuff they throw at Joe and Mika, for instance. Joe and Mika throw at Trump this business. They called him like North Korea.
Everything. They call him everything.
He's like Stalin. He's this. He's
Hitler,
that.
Stalin,
he's the Antichrist.
Mussolini.
I mean, and then they say he's senile. He's going into dementia.
They question his mental health all the time.
I mean, this kind of slander they get away with impunity. With a Mitt Romney, they would get away with all of that. They said he put his dog on top of his car and all this. And Mitt didn't fight back. That's why he lost.
Yeah,
well, now.
Bush, he didn't fight back.
And they talk about Trump with women. You know something? A lot of women like to see a real guy in charge of things, who really runs things the way they should be run and gets